Okay, this is going to be a review of the summer of Punk. For this particular video, though, it's just going to focus on CM Punk, his title reign in the summer of 2005 for Ring of Honor. So let's get right down to it, man. So, Punk, from my recollection, Punk had the great match with Jimmy Rave at Nowhere to Run in Chicago, the steel cage match. And I think the rumor was that, someone from WWE was in attendance and they offered Punk a contract right after that match. And I think the word actually leaked by the time you get to ECW One Night Stand. I think Ring of Honor ran a show right before One Night Stand called The Future Is Now. And when you watch that show in his match against Roderick Strong, you could tell a lot of the fans I think knew he had already signed. They were chanting, "Thank you, Punk." And by the time we get to Death Before Dishonor 3, he's going to be taking on Austin Aries for the Ring of Honor World title. This was going to be on June 18th, 2005. This was from Morristown, New Jersey. Not Morristown Community College. I was hoping it was because I wanted to tell a funny basketball story there, but I think it was at a different venue. But hey, man, the important thing is Austin Aries is the Ring of Honor champion. He had been champion since Final Battle 2004. And it definitely felt like the fans had got their fill of Aries. It's really, really tough because there's moments during this match where it definitely feels like the crowd is very much anti-Aries. But there's other times where it just feels like they're very, very pro-Punk. So, Gabe even said this on commentary. He even said that they already set up like this tournament. So if CM Punk is going to win the Ring of Honor World title, he'll bow out gracefully and forfeit the belt, and then we'll just start crowning a new champion, and we'll get the tournament rolling. Yeah, he actually said that. So that was the belief here, that if Punk miraculously won, that he was just gonna, give a thank you speech and just forfeit the belt, and then on his way to OVW, on his way to, WWE. But that did not happen. So when this match takes place between Aries and Punk, man, it was good, man. I think what goes under the radar here is how good the match is. I think the post-match stuff and Daniel's return, it's just so well done and so memorable that you almost forget that this is by far, I think, the best, match Austin Aries and CM Punk had. And what really goes under the radar, too, is like you say to yourself, man, when Aries was champion, they totally stayed away from Punk for 6 months, which is crazy because, Aries is a red hot heel, Punk is a red hot babyface. I mean, if they were running WrestleMania weekend shows at that time, I mean, that would have been the perfect time to do it. But, they were patient and they held off on it. So we get Aries and Punk in New Jersey, and it was definitely a great match, half hour. I think what's really stood out here watching this back is just how good the crowd was. I mean, they were just shitting all over Aries, and it's funny because it didn't really start until like halfway through the match, where just everything Aries did, they just took a shit all over it. And this is really the first time you could remember like the boos and yes really happening here, and that's really, really funny too, because this whole summer of Punk thing, what really stands out is how it flipped. Like as soon as Punk turned heel and won the belt, it's like it totally flipped, where Punk was getting booed in every single match. But yeah, you know what it is, man. I just think holding the Ring of Honor World title, it took its toll. It took its toll on Aries. He had a bad neck at the time. Punk is actually working over the neck, in this actual match. And too, like I think a lot of the fans just felt a little bit burned out, from Aries at this time. I mean, the bar is just set so high, with Joe's title reign that, anything that feels a little bit repetitive is, the fans are just going to turn on it. And that's exactly what happened here. They just wanted to see Punk win too. I would say if I were to pick one, they just wanted to see, Punk, win the belts. I think the mindset was it just would have felt really, really incomplete if Punk, was a Ring of Honor champion. I mean, he's the one that said, this is the most important belt in North America. He's the one that, even though he didn't win the match, like Joe didn't really have, Joe is great on the mic. Like he really is. But for some reason, like Punk really had to go out of his way and make sure, the fans knew like this is the most important belt, even though he had come up short against Joe. at World Title Classic when he cut that promo. So yeah, I mean, in this particular match, it's just really, Punk working over Aries' neck throughout the bulk of it, and but still, I think Aries definitely had his moments. This isn't just like, all right, let's just put the title on Punk. The match wasn't really that great. I mean, the match is fucking good. The match is really, really good. There's some breathtaking moments here with, Aries actually doing a Death Valley driver on the side of the ring apron to Punk. He gives Punk a really nasty looking, brainbuster off the top rope. And Gabe even does this dangerous, trademark there. I thought that came off awesome. And the finishing stretch here is just really, really well done. Like I said, man, the crowd is fantastic. And I just love the no selling here. Aries actually pulls out the Pepsi plunge to rub it in Punk's face, and Punk actually no sells it and tries to transition into the all right, first actually Aries hits the 450 right after that, and then Punk no sells that too, so he no sells like two of Aries moves. And after the 450, the fans actually booed the shit out of the 450. It's funny because it's such an exciting move. When he did it to Joe, it was like an explosion. I still say that's the best ROH moment ever, when Aries pinned Joe with the 450. But here, it's almost like the fans got sick of seeing it. And as soon as it happened, Punk no sells it. He puts in the Anaconda Vice. So, I mean, that was a really, really cool spot. And it just ends, with, Punk actually Irish whipping Aries into the turnbuckle. And then Punk just hits him with a Pepsi plunge to win this thing. The crowd erupts. There's a nice little wide shot of the pin too, so you could just see the crowd erupt. So it was an awesome moment. The fans are actually chanting, "Thank you, Punk, thank you, Punk." And then this is probably I think it's probably the highlight of this whole promo. Like, it looks like Punk is really, really happy at first. It looks like he's sucking up to the fans. And then slowly but surely, he gives like this evil looking smile. Like he's, I don't know, like he feels bad for the fans. Like it's almost like he's got them. So, they do the code of honor stuff. After Aries, gives Punk the belt, they start chanting, "Thank you, Aries." And, appreciative of the great title reign. And it really was a great title reign from Austin Aries. I think that kind of goes under the radar. He held the belt for 6 months, and, he wrestled the grueling schedule. He made it, he wrestled in 10 different countries, and, he defended the belt several times that, we didn't even get to see a lot of those title defenses. But, the mindset is that Aries worked incredibly hard. He had an incredibly tough burden to follow. And I think they put it over on commentary time and time again that, I don't think anyone had, wrestled at the pace that Aries had wrestled at with the world title up to that time. So I still think this is arguably a top 5 ROH title reign. When we're talking about Aries' first reign, I think it's the better reign in terms of the wrestling goes. I think the reign that he had in 2009 during the HD Net days, obviously that's the better reign in terms of, I think mic work and, character development and all that stuff. But, yeah, I mean, what happened here with Punk is just, it's just amazing. I mean, there's no other way to say it. And I was trying to think about, could anybody else have pulled this off where they're treated like, a top-level babyface, the most over guy in the company, biggest babyface of all time in ROH up to that point, just from the reaction right here. And then you could just flip it and switch it, and you become the most hated person in the building with the promo. You know what, man? I don't know if many people could have done it. We've seen Flair do it, with opposite, go from heel to babyface after the trilogy with Steamboat with the assist from Terry Funk. It's a little bit different. But, yeah, I mean, I really don't know. I really don't know if anybody could have pulled this off the way Punk pulled it off. I think if there's any other guy that could have done it, or that could still do it, I will probably say is Bryan Danielson. And I'm not even saying that Danielson is as good as Punk on the mic, but I do feel like that will probably be the closest one to be able to do it. But yeah, it's just an amazing, change of the mood. You know, everybody wanted Punk to give a speech, and you know, he's basically saying, you know, in anybody else's hand, this belt is just a belt, or this microphone is just a microphone, but in my hands, it becomes power. And I just really, really loved, you know, what he was doing, because it is true. Like, if you have the ability to make the belt feel important, or to cut a promo that has meaning and purpose behind it that could actually change the industry, it becomes much more than just a piece of metal or just a microphone. So yeah, I always say to myself, man, I wish somebody else could do this in some of the other forms of entertainment or industries that are not as well respected. And so that's what really goes to my mind. You always think about this promo when you're talking about how can you make something feel like credible. But yeah, you know, Punk was great here. You know, his demeanor totally changed here. He basically called the fans stupid for buying into it. He mentioned Steamboat in the original babyface turn. He basically said, you know, he had to do things his way, and he kind of paralleled himself, you know, to a snake. You know, he told the story of the old man finding the snake in the grass, in the snow, and the old man nursed the snake back to life. And as soon as the snake was healthy, it bit the old man in the ass. And he said, you know, you stupid old man, I'm a snake. And then obviously he had the great line that MJF has reiterated so many times. The greatest thing the devil ever did was make people believe that he wasn't real. But he said, I am the devil himself. So it's a great promo. I wouldn't say it's like, you know, the greatest, you know, promo Punk ever cut, but in terms of actually, you know, switching the environment or switching the mood, it's one of the, I just think it's one of the most miraculous things that's ever been done, you know, in the history of professional wrestling. And basically he just says, you know, he's going to take this belt, and he rubs it in. He basically does, you know, the champ is here. It's almost like a shot at Cena, because Cena's, you know, he's champion at the time. He just got drafted to Raw. And it's also a shot at Samoa Joe, because Joe was claiming to be, you know, pure champion. He was coming out with the champ is here stuff. So I like the whole reference to the champ is here. I thought that came off great. And basically said, you know, he's taking the belt with him, and there's nothing that anybody can do to stop him. Then you hear a whole bunch of you know, CM pussy chants as he tries to escape. But, you know, before that even happens, though, man, Christopher Daniels, when Daniels comes out, it's got to be, you know, the biggest reaction I think Daniels has ever got. I mean, Daniels was treated like a god here. It's almost like, you know, and it's funny, like, I don't even think TNA was on Spike TV at the time, but yeah, I mean, I think it just shows you that TNA was in the middle of a hot streak. The fact that Daniels got treated like this, it was a huge, you know, comeback for Daniels. And you got to remember too, Daniels is a heel in TNA, but this is a big babyface return where he's trying to, you know, take back the ROH world title. So this was really, really cool, because it definitely made sense within the storylines too. You know, they wrote Daniels off of ROH when, you know, it was decided that he was going to stay with TNA. As TNA, you know, decided, you know, you guys can't work for Ring of Honor anymore. So they, so Punk actually, you know, took him out through the table with the Angel Wings at Battle Lines Are Drawn, which is like early 2004. So, you know, Daniels wants his revenge from that. And then at the same time, you know, he really, you know, even though he had never won the championship, he really is considered like the founding father of Ring of Honor. So it definitely made sense for Daniels to, you know, play this role. You know, it could have been AJ, but, you know, I don't think really AJ had, you know, the strong enough ties to the storylines and to Ring of Honor as Daniels had. So it definitely made sense, especially with the Second City Saints and the Prophecy and the groups and the stables going out. So yeah, the bottom line is Daniels, his comeback was huge. You know, a lot of the fans thought they were going to ring the bell here. They were chanting, ring the bell, ring the bell. But, and, you know, I think a lot of people just thought, oh, okay, he's just going to pass it on to Daniels. But, you know, Punk is able to escape. You see him walk through the crowd, and then that's when they started chanting CM Pussy. So it totally shifted the dynamic of it. But hey, man, I mean, I thought this was great. I think the match was great. I think Punk's, you know, the snake in the grass or snake in the ice promo, whatever you want to call this promo, it's obviously is fantastic. I've never seen someone go from, babyface to heel that quickly before. So I want to give Punk credit there. And yeah, I got to, credit to Christopher Daniels, man. I feel like Daniels has really gotten a little bit underrated in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I mean, his return was awesome, man. He was treated like a god. So, give Christopher Daniels credit. I only think, his work in TNA, I know a lot of like Ring of Honor fans were anti-TNA over the years, but at this time, it felt like TNA was definitely helping, ROH in a lot of different ways. Okay, so obviously this tournament to crown a new champion is not going to happen. But when you're looking at, Punk being champion, I mean, it's funny how many people really bought into this thing, like on from the crowd reactions. I mean, you definitely heard like a lot of CM Punk support throughout this whole reign. But for the most part, a lot of it was pretty negative. Like I think a lot of people just really, really bought into it. It's funny though, because when you look at the schedule though, it's like, all right, so he wins the title at the end of June. You have all these, dates in July, and then you got this double shot in August, and they wrap it up in Chicago. So I think, if you were a really, really smart fan, I think you would have known, all right, okay, Punk is just going to have this reign, and then he's going to drop the belt, and then we're going to have the farewell in Chicago. So I'm sure like if you, I'm sure there were some people that thought that was going to happen, but I think there was probably like a little bit of uncertainty too. If you could really buy into, the storyline right here. I think that's the whole point of the Sign of Dishonor promo is how can we get the fans to really believe that this is it? Like, I'm leaving with the title. Like, I hate Ring of Honor. Like, fuck this place. So it's almost like this is, Ring of Honor at the time. It's almost like Punk was a heel and Ring of Honor was the babyface company. With the Summer Punk in 2011, it's almost like, Vince in WWE was the heel, but Punk is the babyface for taking Cena's belt and leaving the company with it. So it's really a little bit different than the Summer of Punk in 2011. Because, Ring of Honor, it's an up and coming company where, we're trying to restore the credibility of the wrestling. The championship is on the best wrestler in the world. So I think that's what makes, Ring of Honor the baby face. But, the Sign of Dishonor promo, without getting carried away with it, but I think it's probably the best promo that Punk has ever done in Ring of Honor. And it's not really just because he signed the WWE contract on the ROH World title, thanks to Shane Hagedorn. The ring announcer and the referees didn't want to do it. Shane Hagedorn is the one that holds up the title. So he was one of CM Punk's students. So that had to be the best, moment of Shane Hagedorn's career, aside from, managing David Richards and the American Wolves. So, shout out to Shane Hagedorn. But, what this promo did was, it really took a lot of shots at the Ring of Honor fans and the message boards and all the criticism. He talked about how, like, so many people doubted him. Like, I'm sloppy. I'm not qualified to run the school. And then some people even, like, doubted the fact that he even signed with WWE. So it's almost like he, spit a lot of venom at the fans. This came off like it was really, really anti, Ring of Honor fan base. So that's what stood out about the promo as well. And then you have this whole other thing where, he's trying to treat the fans like they're puppets, which he alluded to at Death Before Dishonor 3. But the most interesting thing about this promo that Punk cuts with the suit, and he comes out with the blonde hair is gone. He's got purple in his hair. He's got dark hair. Foley had a really, really good line later on in that. And, you really forget how much Foley, was involved on this show. Obviously, it's in Long Island, Sign of Dishonor. But before we get to that, though, the most important thing is, Punk did tell the story of why he's, the most valuable person in Ring of Honor. And I think that's what this show does. It really shows you Punk's value to ROH. And he even did it in the main event, too, like with all the teasing. He talked about this secret meeting And he didn't mention the scandal. He didn't mention, the word pedophile or Robbie Feinstein or exactly what happened. But he just said, there was a secret meeting, while he was wrestling for total nonstop action. He actually set out the whole name of the promotion. But he said, it was Jerry Lynn, Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, and CM Punk. He said at the time AJ was the NWA champion, and he actually told AJ, he said, you hold the power. Like they have to kind of cater to you because you're the champion. I'm not so sure how much stock you could put into AJ being the champion. AJ's always been very loyal to TNA, been very loyal to the Jarretts. So, if you're going to ask me, AJ's going to be more loyal to TNA. I think that goes without saying. I think that's obvious. That's like saying the sky is blue. But yeah, it's really, really interesting that it really did feel like Punk wanted AJ to be a little bit more stubborn about, working with Ring of Honor. It really did feel like AJ and Daniels were pretty much satisfied with just kind of, bowing out gracefully and just being exclusive to TNA. And Punk's the one that really put up, a fight like he really did. And I think that's the important thing here. He tried to explain that, as long as he's not wrestling for Vincent Kennedy McMahon, he actually said the whole name. And as long as the company that he's working for is not running a pay-per-view, I could work for anybody, anywhere I want. And obviously he didn't mention the scandal, but it was pretty cool. It was a really, really good, story that he told. He was just trying to make the point to the fans that, these guys turned their back on Ring of Honor and I didn't. I stayed. I became the trainer of the company. I'm the one that, put over the belt huge and proclaimed it the most important belt. There's nobody that ate, slept, and breathed Ring of Honor like CM Punk. So I think that's what it does more than anything. And then, what he says is just, mind blowing. When he had the match with Joe, if you remember, after the match was over, the first one, he said, fuck anybody that tries to stop us. Obviously, there was people trying to bring the company down and divide the company because of, the scandal. No matter how you look at it, like they really, even though like the production values got worse and, maybe you could definitely argue that they just didn't have, a lot of financial backing, a lot of money. They made it as far as they did. And they got to the point where, all right, like things have kind of, smoothed over a little bit. And when he said it with like so much fucking venom. He said, if it wasn't for CM Punk, it wasn't for me, there'd be no Ring of Honor for AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels to be coming running back to. When he said that though, he said that phrase with so much more venom than anything he said in the promo. So it was a great promo. It kind of ends with like James Gibson coming out, and the bottom line is Gibson, Joe, Daniels, they're like the main three guys, trying to take the belt from Punk. But Punk would defend it against other guys like Lethal and Strong, on the road to leaving the company. So on this particular show, he actually takes on Jay Lethal, and I would definitely say this. This is probably the weak link of all the matches I think Punk had in this whole summer. It's just, Jay, he really didn't get the chance to show what he showed against Joe at Mayhem. Like, it didn't come off like that at all. It felt like teacher versus student, but still, it was definitely a good experience for Jay Lethal. Punk, alluded to the fact that Lethal actually pinned him at Back to Basics with the Dragon Suplex that made Punk rotate. And, Lethal actually hits that move as soon as the match starts. But, he gives Lethal the title shot. And, it kind of ends with Joe coming out trying to cheer Lethal on. Joe kind of plays the low-key role and just slaps Lethal in the face, tries to, help him out of the Anaconda Vice. Punk actually hits like a nasty-looking muscle buster, and then he chokes Lethal out. So it's, it was, Punk kind of rubbed it in there. He rubbed into Joe, and, they didn't go back to Joe and Punk in a singles match. So this kind of filled that void to kind of, build tension with Joe. But hey, man, before you even got, to this lethal match right here. I almost forgot about it. Punk did some really, really cool stuff. He started bringing that. He started teasing that he was going to bring out all these legends. First, it was Low Key. So Low Key's music hits. He doesn't come out. Then it was Bryan Danielson. So Danielson's music hits. This is the Offspring Self-Esteemed Danielson song. And then the Briscoes music hit, the Leonard Skinner theme, and the Briscoes don't come out. What I think what Punk was trying to show right there is that, all these guys that, that the ROH fans clamor for, they're just not there. Like they've been very, very inconsistent. He even mentioned AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, and even Low Key, turned their backs on this company. He didn't say that Danielson turned his back on the company, but this might be where some of the divide between Danielson and Punk came in. If you were to say, what caused the most recent divide between Danielson and Punk, I would say it's the stuff with Cabana. I think they've always had a pretty good relationship. We all know that, but he was trying to make a point here that Danielson was not here. He's in Europe. Low Key was in Japan. The Briscoes. Punk worked with the Briscoes a lot, but the Briscoes were they weren't back yet. I mean, that's the bottom line. I don't think Punk had any animosity towards the Briscoes whatsoever, but it was really, really interesting there. And so the show actually ends with Foley coming out. So Foley comes out and yeah, it was some great stuff. Great back and forth between Foley and Punk. The highlight being where Punk is taking a shot at Foley for his championships in the WWE, telling him, yeah, you were a 3-time champion, but for what? For like a total of 3 weeks? And Foley actually breaks down how he lost the belt to The Rock and like had to drop it to Triple H in 24 hours. It was actually kind of funny. And then it just kind of ends with Punk just saying, when it comes to drawing power, like you're nowhere near Triple H. It's like you're not even in JBL's league, and Foley took exception to that. He really, really hated that, and he's basically just telling Punk, to drop the title and do the right thing. And Foley also tried to make the point of even though Punk was mocking him for not being in Triple H's league, he just said to him like, Foley was like, their careers benefited from having worked with me. I like to think that, me working with Triple H and, me putting over Randy Orton, I left the company in a better place, and that's what you need to do. And then he tells the story about how he just got off the phone with Vince McMahon, and Vince is a little bit ashamed. And, if this guy Punk doesn't do the right thing, he might spend an eternity in OVW. So that's how Foley ends right there. And then someone actually shouts out, I think that's a lie. It's almost like Foley sounded like he was like, I just got off the phone with Santa Claus, and apparently you're not a good boy. Like it had like that type of feeling to it. So like Foley's like, I just got off the phone with Vince. So it was kind of a funny promo. But hey, man, I think I totally forgot that Foley was so heavily involved. So the very next show was actually at the New Yorker Hotel. Once again, this is actually the follow-up to Manhattan Mayhem, if you could believe it or not. And during the middle of the show, right before James Gibson's match, I think it's supposed to be like a 4-way with Gibson, the lights go out and Punk is actually in the balcony, and he's cutting a promo on Gibson and, making fun of him, making fun of his accent, which was good. Good promo from Punk. He definitely got a lot of heat. And, I think Roderick is in the ring too. He's basically saying that he wasn't happy the last time he faced Roderick Strong as a babyface, and he feels like he needs to teach him a lesson. Says, Roderick is going to be the future of Ring of Honor, but still he needs to be taught a lesson. And he says that, if the winner of this match faces me in the main event in a non-title match, then Foley comes out and threatens to throw him off the balcony, starts like choking him out, and, forces Punk to agree that it's going to be a match for the championship. Foley says something like, when I hear the words non-title, it makes me want to vomit. Something like that. The audio wasn't great here, but it was pretty cool. Just the way they had, Punk and Foley on the balcony and, teasing Foley actually throwing Punk off the balcony was pretty damn cool. So the main event, you got Punk versus Roderick Strong. This is the rematch from The Future Is Now, this time with Punk playing the heel. Pretty good match. They go about 26 minutes. I would definitely say this is a step up from the Lethal match. It's funny, like the two guys Punk chose to work with were Lethal and Strong. And yeah, two guys that ended up being the Ring of Honor World Champions. Some people actually think Lethal is the best Ring of Honor champion ever. It took a long time for these two guys to prosper, I think. But, you know, Lethal and Strong would end up main eventing Death Before Dishonor 10 years later. So in some ways, it's a little bit symbolic, or that Punk chose to work with both of them. So the match was strong. It's pretty damn good, man. I really enjoyed it. You know, Punk, you know, felt comfortable here as a heel, just, you know, jawing with the fans. There's a sequence here where Punk's trunks came down and he's wrestling with his bare ass hanging out. What felt like forever. You know, Shawn used to do this when he was a heel as well. Like he used to wrestle matches and, you know, not pull up his pants. And when Punk finally pulled up his pants, they actually got a standing ovation from the crowd. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was good. You know, Punk at this time, like his moveset was a little bit different. You know, he used to use the Welcome to Chicago, which is like a tiger driver into a backbreaker. His Shining Wizard stuff came off great. I think Punk in the ring at this time was pretty damn good. It definitely felt like the most seasoned I think Punk was in Ring of Honor. I definitely think he gotten better, especially in terms of physical conditioning. You know, lean muscle. He definitely was not injury prone. You know, that these matches did not feel watered down. It didn't feel like, oh, he's saving his energy for the WWE. It didn't really feel like that at all. And then at the same time, yeah, this match was good. This is another, you know, case that Roderick Strong could be MVP in 2005. It's a lot more satisfying than the Jay Lethal match. I just think Punk did a good job of putting over Roderick's moveset. I thought the sick kicks came off great. The stronghold where, you know, Strong is digging his knee into Punk's back like it's a knife. I thought that came off really cool. So yeah, the match is good. It's fast paced. It almost had like a Flair Steamboat feel to it with the chops from both guys. It just definitely, it felt like that's what they were going for in terms of the fluidity of the match. Obviously, Roderick just chopped the shit out of Punk here. The finish comes with a, you know, really, really nice heel victory here. You know, not everybody's going to like the finish. It just kind of came out of nowhere. You know, Roderick gets a small package. Punk reverses it into a roll-up, gets his foot on the rope from the far camera angle, so you could barely even see it, but it just came off quick, abrupt, sudden. It's a good heel finish. It's not a bad, you know, foot on the rope finish. It was pretty well executed. We've seen a lot worse over the years, and this pretty much ends with, you know, Foley, Gibson, and Joe just, you know, keeping Punk from leaving the building, and it ends with Gibson doing the Gibson bomb to Punk. Foley actually counts to 3. Gibson holds up the belt. Some of the fans start chanting, "You're not the champ. You're not the champ." And then Gibson was kind of screwed. It didn't really go that well. You know, obviously they were just trying to send the fans home happy. But, you know, the ROH title had so much credibility that, you know, you couldn't really, you know, pretend to be the champion and have it come off good. But you get the point there. You know, Foley wanted to send the fans home happy. So that's Escape from New York. Really, really good main event between Punk and Roderick Strong right there. And from there, we move on to Fate of an Angel. It's called Fate of an Angel because Matt Hardy took on Christopher Daniels. But in terms of Punk on this show, he cut a really, really good promo on James Gibson. You know, kind of mocking Gibson, mocking his family, mocking that he got fired, really, really mocking the accent. Punk does a good Jamie Noble impersonation. He's not hard to impersonate. I've done it a couple times before with, you know, the Nydia stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was really good. I think Punk and Gibson did a really, really good job of, you know, expressing the hatred towards each other. You know, Punk actually proclaimed that, you know, Gibson is the MVP of 2005. But unfortunately, the MVP is the champion. And, you know, if we're going to go one MVP, it's got to be me. So it is cool. There are some people that think this Punk reign was so good that it should still, make him the MVP of 2005, which is definitely debatable. Some people think it's Joe. It's an incredible MVP race. That will be a year where, the MVP race just definitely has a lot of depth. But when it comes down to it, it really felt like it was a toss-up between, Gibson and Strong for the MVP. But, Jamie comes out to interrupt Punk, and Punk totally annihilates Gibson with the chain, actually. And, Gibson is bleeding. He's hemorrhaging from the head. And they kind of sell the fact that, we possibly might not get a main event. But, hey, you end up doing it. Punk actually, comes out to attack Daniels at the end of the Matt Hardy match. And then Jamie Gibson actually does come out with his head all bandaged up. So we get Gibson versus Punk, the main event of Fate of an Angel. And it was good. It was really, really good. This definitely does get a lot of praise. So I'm trying to think now. The matches that really ended up being very successful in terms of, votes and getting the fans' attention and high ratings, from the ROH message board, where, the matches that actually made the top 100 lists of some of the fans. The Fate of an Angel match between Gibson and Punk did very well. It made that list. Punk and Strong made the list. Obviously, Punk and Aries, I think that finished top 10. The Lethal match obviously did not make the list. The Christopher Daniels match from the Homecoming did not make the list. I don't think the Cabana match did make it either. I could be wrong about that, but the match with James Gibson definitely did make it. It just had really, really good drama. Execution-wise, Gibson put up a great fight, great babyface comeback. Punk actually got really sliced up here. Some of those Irish whips into the guardrail caused him to start bleeding, from the back. And he was just really, really sliced up. So they're both bleeding here. Punk attacks the head injury, during the actual match. And, the Anaconda Vice stuff is really, really good. Gibson's able to kind of, fight out of the Anaconda Vice. He's able to lock Punk in like a, he's actually able to go after his knee and, lock him up in somewhat of like a Texas cloverleaf to put pressure on the knee. So lots of good drama here. I thought the finish came off great, man. The finish came off great. Punk actually kicks out of the Gibson bomb. The fans went crazy on that kick out. They thought that was it. And, Gibson, fights out of the Anaconda Vice. He really kind of works the crowd as he's fighting out of it. And as soon as he tries to transition to hit the ropes, Punk actually just rolls him up, backwards and grabs the ropes to get the heel victory. Finish came off great, man. So I really liked this match between Punk and Gibson. I thought it delivered. Some people aren't crazy about it, but I thought it was definitely one of the highlights of the summer of Punk. Great main event. That Fate of an Angel show, I think it's great. So definitely check that out. So Gibson comes up short, but, he'll definitely get the last laugh before it's over. So we're going to transition to the Homecoming. This is the Christopher Daniels match from Philadelphia. They call it the Homecoming because it's AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels coming home to Philadelphia, where, the birthplace of Ring of Honor. Yeah, man, this is a pain in the ass, man. This is like the first time I've had a real problem trying to watch back an ROH show with the DVD just freezing. I mean, I don't even remember having an issue with the DVD, when I first watched this. I don't even remember, like, I don't remember damaging it. I'm like, what the fuck happened here? So I drove myself crazy to try to find a way to, watch this match. I actually watched the beginning of it, watched the end of it. There's like a little stretch in the middle that I missed. But, man, I was just like, man, how can I find a way to watch this shit? Because on a DVD player, it's not like you could just skip to the end of the match. But, I figured it out, man. I didn't even know I had a DVD player on my laptop. So I opened up the DVD player. And on the DVD player on the laptop, you could actually just skip to the end of the match so I could avoid the damaged area. And that's what worked. So I was able to watch like the last 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. But, the Daniels and Punk stuff, it was good. I think the match is underrated. I can see why this doesn't get any praise. I think Daniels wrestling a whole hour with him being in TNA. I think, Punk is on the verge of going to WWE. It's tough to have an hour-long match with guys taking risks that are in different companies. And I think more than anything, that's why maybe the match didn't really deliver. And plus, I think a whole hour for a Christopher Daniels match, it's asking a lot because I don't know. I just don't think everybody is suited to wrestle an hour-long match to keep everybody engaged. But hey, what really this had going into it, when you go back to Fate of an Angel, after the match is over, Daniels actually hijacks the title from Punk, and he tells Punk, he's like, if you want this belt, you're gonna have to beat me to take it back. So it's a rare case where the babyface actually steals the title, and this is just another case where the guy that hijacks the title comes up short. I don't think it's ever happened in the history of professional wrestling where someone that stole the belt actually wins the belt for the next match. So this actually goes to a 60-minute time limit draw. I think it was good, man. They did some really, really good stuff here. Daniels did a good job of working over Punk's neck. Obviously Punk has the Anaconda Vice, which definitely works on parts of the upper body. But the Chiquita clutch was really putting on a lot of pressure on the neck towards the end of the match. And I think that's really the most memorable thing about the finishing stretch here, just the drama of it. When you watch this match, though, it's really not that fancy. There's really nothing fancy in terms of them taking risks, in terms of them doing anything, that exciting. But it's fluid. It's fluid. I would say this. This is a really, really good match to study because it's long. They give you a lot of, just fundamental, sequences here. It's a classic heel. It's a classic red hot heel going up against a classic babyface that just came back. So it definitely has a nice type of feel to it. But yeah, I think in terms of anyone that wants to become a wrestler, it's a good match to watch in terms of just, two guys getting time, two guys just really telling a simple story. Just some of the arm drags, the running the ropes, the Irish whips, the drop toe holds. It's just a good match to watch some of the basic stuff because they really took their time. They really had a lot of time to kill. So the match really kind of gives you everything in terms of just simple stuff to study. But the last couple of minutes were pretty damn good. I mean, when Daniels hit the best moonsault ever. He hurt himself on it, so he's selling that, so he wasn't able to make the cover. I think, Daniels stayed away from the Pepsi plunge, and the ending comes when Daniels executes the angel wings, but time just, runs out on him. They just said, Punk did a really good job of, taking Daniels to the limit, staying away from Daniels, making sure that he didn't beat him. So, you had to protect Daniels. I'm sure the agreement was, coming straight out of TNA as X Division champion, I'm sure would have drove TNA crazy to have Daniels get pinned by Punk. So that didn't happen here. So, the logical thing to do was just do a 60-minute time limit draw. I think that felt like the most logical thing to do. But, give Punk credit. The wrestle 60 minutes is obviously nowhere near as impactful or as memorable as the Joe matches. But, the fact that he went a whole 60 is pretty damn impressive. I think both guys are just in really good shape at the time. And if anything, I think what this match did was it really got Daniels ready. For some of the classics he would have in TNA. I mean, think about it. I mean, even though the match just doesn't get a lot of attention, it's still 60 minutes. You're still going out there for 60 minutes and, you still have to keep the fans engaged. And I felt like they did keep the fans engaged. And, to think that Daniels had the classics, that Unbreakable and Bound for Glory, it matches like this kind of help you, kind of maintain your rhythm or, even get you up to that next level. So, credit there. The match kind of ends with, Gibson coming out, Joe coming out. Joe comes out without any boots or sandals and, kicking Punk with his bare feet. So Punk tries to escape, but he's able to get the title back, but he kind of retreats with the championship. And that takes us to Redemption. Okay, so here we go. We're finally here. Punk will finally drop the belt at Redemption. This was in Dayton, Ohio. This was on August 12th, 2005. I got to say this, man. Watching this back, these two main events, incredible double shot right here. I would definitely say you could definitely argue this is the best weekend in ROH history. Just with, Punk dropping the belt to Gibson, and then, Punk's farewell at Punk, the final chapter. These are really like, very emotional moments. But I got to say, man, when we're looking back at the history of Ring of Honor title wins, this Gibson win with the celebration with his wife and the ROH locker room, and Punk proclaiming this to be a family, it really was, definitely. I think maybe the most memorable championship victory I think we've ever had. I think Aries beating Joe. Definitely the best finish, but I think in terms of a celebration, just a feel-good celebration, this Jamie Gibson celebration, it was just incredible. I just can't believe it, how good the finish was, and just how the code of honor just came about. Just seeing Punk's hug to Jamie after this was over, it's something that just made you feel good. Especially with the story of Jamie, being fired and him kind of, redeeming himself with this career. I guess that's why, another reason why they call this Redemption. It's just a great show right here. So this is a four-way match. We get CM Punk, the champion, taking on Christopher Daniels, James Gibson, and Samoa Joe. You actually got a video package here. Great video package. Like one of the rare times ROH did a video package. They focused on each and every show of the Summer of Punk. I mean, every show was just a piece of the puzzle here. I mean, let's just go through it right now. At Death Before Dishonor, Punk wins the title, swerves the fans. Daniels returns, signed a Dishonor. He signs the WWE contract on the ROH World title. Has the great confrontation with Foley to end the show. Escape from New York. They do all the balcony stuff. And the stuff with Foley, counting the three, and then he beats, the up-and-comers and Lethal and Strong, that weekend. And then we go to Fate of an Angel, where, him and Gibson have a classic, where it's classic heel versus classic babyface with, both guys bleeding. Daniels hijacks the title at Fate of an Angel. They have the 60-minute time limit draw in Philadelphia at the Homecoming. Punk is able to retreat and get the ROH title back. And then we have this four-way at Redemption. They actually go about 50 minutes. It's an elimination match. It kind of got off to a slow start. There really wasn't one time where anybody was in danger of getting eliminated, but it was cool though. It definitely had like a feel out, type of process in the beginning. I think. In some ways, it felt like it was a little bit inspired by the Heat Wave '96, four-way, which is totally different. There's not like a big swerve in terms of like a manager, turning on anybody here. But just in terms of the overall like feel of it, in terms of the pacing and just the way it was allowed to unfold, it just kind of reminded me of that Heat Wave, four-way from 1996. But yeah, I mean, everything here was just magical though. Like you just had slowly the anticipation building. Daniels, for whatever reason, Daniels is just really over here. I mean, like deafening Fallen Angel chants when he came out. But yeah, the story of the match is just Punk. Punk was just like a snake in the grass here, just by what he was doing. I mean, there was once this stuff started to get going, there's a lot of like crazy stuff on the outside. You had like an Arabian press from Daniels. You had Joe doing the tope, doing some crazy stuff. Joe and Daniels kind of jump started their feud right here. They have a lot of history going back to the Prophecy days, with Joe kind of breaking away from the Prophecy, but they rekindled it here, and it kind of this whole weekend too, even in TNA, they really planted the seeds for a lot of the tension that Joe and Daniels would do in Ring of Honor and TNA this weekend too, even at Sacrifice with Daniels interfering in the World X Cup match. But hey, there was a part where the match started breaking down. Daniels and Joe were going at it. Gibson is away from the referee. Punk just lays Gibson out and hits him with the steel chair shot to open up the big gash from Fate of an Angel. So Gibson actually has to go back to get all stitched up. So you think Gibson's totally out of the match, and then later on in the actual match, Daniels and Joe were going at it. I believe Joe actually starts, choking Daniels out. Daniels tries to get to the ropes. Referee doesn't see it. Punk is actually like underneath the ring, and he pushes Daniels' feet away from the ropes. So Joe actually makes Daniels tap out. And so I got to say, man, before the submission actually came there, you could just slowly see like the fans were just really, really engaged. Like they just felt it. They felt it like either Joe or Daniels is going to win this thing. So in a way, I think they really, really did swerve the fans. So thumbs up there. I think they did an incredible job there of thinking, either Daniels or Joe was going to, win this thing. But that did not happen though. So, later on in the match, Daniels does not want to leave. He starts, punching Punk. Inadvertently, Daniels insecures Joe, and this is how the whole Joe and Daniels thing really, really picks up. And then after that happens, Punk is able to he's able to low blow Daniels, and then he's able to get a small package to finally pin Joe. I mean, think about it, they were almost in the ring together, almost 3 hours, and Punk was never able to pin Joe. He's able to pin Joe here with the small package. And it was just like, holy shit, this is huge. And then, Joe and Daniels fight to the back. And then all of a sudden, the fans start chanting, "We want Gibson, we want Gibson." So eventually Jamie Gibson comes back out. And then we got him and Punk just going at it. Just great war between them two. They continue their great chemistry, great back and forth. Punk is able to kick out of the Gibson bomb. Gibson is able to fight off the Pepsi plunge, and he's able to transition into another Gibson bomb off the top rope to put Punk away. And it was straight exhilaration. Great feeling. Just a great celebration. James Gibson is the ROH World Champion. Who would have thunk it? I mean, who would have thunk it at the end of 2004 that Gibson would end up being the champion, fresh off getting fired by WWE. It's a great story of redemption for James Gibson. And this is really what Ring of Honor is all about, when I look back on it. Just what they were allowed Jamie to do. He was able to have wrestling freedom to show how good he can be. When he was with WWE, I enjoyed a lot of what Jamie did in WWE to a degree, even the stuff he did with Nydia. I mean, a lot of it was good, but when you look at what he was doing the last couple of years, a lot of it was just kind of bullshit. But, he was able to really show, like, he's not just like a good cruiserweight. This guy is like one of the best wrestlers in the world. He was able to have that wrestling freedom, able to be the MVP in what is probably still maybe Ring of Honor's best year. If you look at it, everybody was here in 2005. AJ, Danielson, Joe, Punk, James Gibson, Roderick Strong, Austin Aries with the great title reign. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Jimmy Rave had a great year. I mean, it was just such a great year, for the company. And lo and behold, the MVP of the company is the guy that, from the cruiserweights to the guy that's on Velocity. It ended up being Jamie Gibson. It's funny, Matt. I don't know, man. Matt Hardy kind of sees him on the way out. It looks like Matt was like in a rush to get out of there. He's just like, "Congratulations, Jamie." But the celebration was cool, especially the stuff with his wife. Talk about how his wife stuck by him throughout all the hard times, and Spanky was there to, I think Spanky actually turned heel, but he almost ruined the celebration by asking for a title shot. But the whole locker room just legitimately felt like they were really, really happy for him. So really loved the moment. I think Punk loves the moment too. He has always stated that, this is an example of just hard work paying off and hard work being rewarded. I just love the hug and the embrace between Punk and Gibson. And that's the art of wrestling, to make everybody believe that they hated each other, and with Punk digging at Gibson for being fired and the accent and him being a hillbilly, and for them to actually embrace like that. The one that really it really kind of felt like Punk was the one kind of pushing for Jamie to end up being champion. And that leads us to Punk, the final chapter. Okay, so just to wrap it up, we got Punk, the final chapter. We're going to get Punk taking on Colt Cabana, 2 out of 3 falls. A couple things I want to mention before we wrap this up. Punk was coming out with, Colt a personality throughout this whole reign. So, if you're able to have the exact DVDs, and that's the value of keeping the original DVDs, is you get the music. The Honor Club stuff with them muting the songs, I don't know, man. That just doesn't, that kind of rubs me the wrong way. But, you definitely understand it. But I think that just shows you there's a lot of value in having the actual shows, which is the same way a lot of ECW fans feel about ECW as well. But yeah, Cult of Personality. It's funny that Punk really thought it worked as a heel, and that theme really took off as a babyface. It still works either way. I think it works for a heel or a babyface. But with Punk, the final chapter, what really stands out here, the highlight for me, I think the match with Cabana is good. I really do think it's good. I can't remember if it made ROH's top 100 matches. I'm going to say that it didn't, but I could be wrong about that. But, what really stands out here is, the entrance. Punk actually does not come out while Miseria Can't Tear, the AFI theme, is playing. They're just showing like footage of Punk and Cabana throughout the years, embracing and hugging. And I got to say, guys, I started tearing up, when they showed it, especially like on the hug, when Cabana hugs Punk after the Jimmy Rave match. It just the way the song was playing, how they edited the hug with the song, it just came off great. And Punk isn't even out yet. Punk actually comes out with another theme. It's almost like a somber, soft rock theme. It's definitely, I don't know what song it is. If anyone knows the exact song that Punk comes out to, I'd like to know. It was really, really good, but it was different though. It was almost like, this is the way he wanted to end it. And he comes out crying with a whole bunch of tears. But yeah, man, I gotta say, man, not just on this show too, but it was actually on Death Before Dishonor 3. They tried to build it up like that was going to be Punk's last show. So they show back all these old clips with Punk actually doing like narration during the clips, which was really cool. They show everything from, the Cabana early stuff to the Raven stuff to the, the Second City Saints stuff, just everything. So I thought that was really, really cool. But, it just kind of reminded you of just how much, Punk and Cabana went through in terms of their history together. The 2 out of 3 falls match in Minnesota, like I think it really put them on the map. All the stuff that they did in the Midwest, training with Ace Steel, IWA Mid-South. You just forget like how much time they really spent together. It's just really, really a shame, man. It really is a shame that they're not friends anymore. But it just put everything into perspective for me. But a lot of the old footage, it's crazy how you see like how skinny and how young Punk looked at the early days of the Murphy Rec Center. That really, really stood out. But here we go. We get 2 out of 3 falls between Punk and Cabana. I think the match was fun. I think it was good. Punk was able to do a lot of stuff here that he's not comfortable doing with other guys, like the Hurricane Rana from the ring apron. I thought that came off great. I think Colt actually wins the first fall with the Colt 45. The second fall, I think Punk actually won it with the Pepsi Twist, which is like a version of the Lariat. I could be wrong about that. Maybe it was a Shining Wizard. It's just how funny how Punk's moveset, was totally different, at that time. He would bust out, moonsaults. He would actually do like a split leg of moonsaults, like a lot of stuff that he totally abandoned over the years. But yeah, the match was definitely good. The ending isn't going to be for everybody, though. Cabana kind of, there's a couple of like small packages and, reversals. And, I think Cabana's able to, get a small package to end this thing. But it was good. They did some comedy. I thought Cabana was able to show how good of an athlete he was. I thought Cabana looked great here. I mean, I think their chemistry was good. In some ways, I still think this has got to be up there with one of Cabana's best matches. The match with Danielson at Gut Check. The booking of that is phenomenal. The matches that Cabana had with Joe, the one from Death Before Dishonor, I thought that was really good. But this might be Cabana's best match in terms of one that wasn't like a blood feud. I think the Homicide match, the Jimmy Jacobs matches, those are really good as well. Probably the match with Homicide is going to end up being Cabana's best match. But just shows you how good Cabana is as a comedy wrestler as well. The European style, a lot of the stuff that he did with Punk to try to bait him in and distract him. And he said, look up, look down. And he was able to get pleased. That Punk is like, oh, no, I'm not looking up. I'm not looking up. And then he said, oh, look down. And then he was able to schoolboy him. So they did a lot of fun stuff. It really is a fun little match right here. But, the most memorable thing is just the aftermath. I mean, who is it that poured the Pepsi on? It was actually Cabana. Cabana actually poured the Pepsi on Punk. You actually get to see Gabe Sapolsky. God, Gabe was really fat at that time, but he was just explaining that his whole life was Ring of Honor, and just he was obsessed with Ring of Honor, like Quentin Tarantino was obsessed with movies. So there's just no time for anything else. You actually had Loki and Homicide. They didn't want to come all the way out, so they just stayed by Gabe. I thought that was funny. Joe was actually drinking the Pepsi, he's pouring the whole thing down his throat to celebrate. So the celebration came off great. Punk really put over Ring of Honor. Just said that this is a family and it's the best company in the world. It's the best night of his life. It's an incredible double shot. The combination of Gibson winning the belt, I got to say, that's the best celebration for an ROH champion I think I've ever seen. I think that, I'm not going to say that Gibson had the best reign or that's the best, finish. The finish is good, though. It's damn good. But the celebration with him and Punk embracing is just man, God, that was just so emotional. But yeah, man, I wanted to go into a lot of different stuff here, but I'll tell you, Punk's theme, the cult of personality, this is where the first time I think he came out with it was at Sign of Dishonor. But, they played the AFI theme here, and I love the AFI theme. It came off great. The fans are into the theme. It's an amazing song, but it just kind of reminds you, no matter how good the song is, if a lot of people haven't heard it, then you can't bank on that getting a great reaction. I think I always say to myself, and I've said this time and time again, I do think Punk, a lot of the fallout with AEW, I definitely think it had to do with him wanting to go back to WWE. And I think the one thing is when Punk came out with the ROH theme at Revolution, I just think it kind of made him realize oh, okay, not all these fans were with me in ROH. So maybe WWE made me the star that I am. And I think he just appreciated how much, WWE did for him. It was the first time I think he finally appreciated some of the stuff that WWE did to make him the star that he is. So, but hey, the bottom line is, Ring of Honor and CM Punk was definitely synonymous. And you could really argue that Punk really, gave his heart, for ROH more than anybody. He stuck up for the company. Obviously Joe would be the other guy, but, Punk alluded to the fact that he was the head trainer and that nobody ate, slept, and breathed, ROH, like him. But, the stuff with Cabana is kind of depressing. It's depressing to see how magical the friendship was and, just everything that they went through and just to see what it is now. But I think that's it. I think that's the biggest reason why the AEW stuff didn't work out. I just think the stuff with Cabana was just toxic. If he couldn't be in the same dressing room with him and coexist with him, and it was going to spark a divide between Cabana's friends, it just really reminded you of those times where if you can't get along with one of your friends, how is that going to affect your friendship with other guys that are friends with that friend? And it's just really, really weird how that happened. But it's all over money, though. It's all over the doctor. It's all over, whatever money, Punk had lost there. But it's just a shame. But it's just reality, though. And I think that's the thing we got to keep in mind. But, yeah. I always wish the AEW stuff could have worked out for Punk. But at the same time, I think even with the Cabana stuff aside and with the the media scrum and the fallout with the Bucks and Omega, even if you put all that stuff to the side, I do think there's other stuff too that just made him appreciate being in WWE. I think the whole AEW Revolution stuff with the ROH theme, maybe that not getting the reaction I think he hoped it would, and when you combine it with the way Cody came out at WrestleMania, I think there's little things there. I think everything was fine in Punk's AEW run, though. Everything was fine up until the Hangman match at Double or Nothing, where it just something seemed off there. Something seemed really off. In the media scrum with Tony Khan and how they're asking him about Bischoff and Punk having to answer all of Bischoff's criticisms and Tony Khan just going on and on about the match quality. So there was a lot of weird stuff there that just had nothing to do with the injuries and all that stuff. But it really is interesting to look at that whole run and just saying, like, what can you learn from it? Like, what went wrong there? Even though it's been like beaten to death. But yeah. But the bottom line is, I think this summer of Punk, it still definitely has, some of the most engaging and best booked and just some of the best pro wrestling ever is on this series of show. Not just with match quality, but just everything. Just heel performances, promos, swerves, creativity, getting guys over. It just pretty much checked all the boxes for me. I think it's an incredible reign. Is it the best reign in ROH history? No one's going to say that it is because it's just not long enough, but it's definitely probably one of the most memorable. I think it's so memorable that it puts it into the top 5, even though it's that short. And I think that's what really stands out about it. Obviously, I would still put like Aries' reign and Morishima's reigns, possibly over this because of how long and how good they were. But in terms of it being memorable, I think it's so memorable that you have to argue that this is, easily top 10 and debatably, in the top 5. So it was awesome stuff. I really enjoyed, going back to it. I would definitely say the Aries match from Death Before Dishonor 3, that shit held up really, really well. And the ending to Redemption, some of the stuff that him and Gibson did, was just really, really well done as well. Like underrated wrestling. I think the chemistry between Punk and Gibson was just really good storytelling, and just everything just really made sense without them really going into, spot fest mode or overkill mode. I thought they had some really, really good matches. So yeah, I think I rambled on enough. That's the summer of Punk. Hope everybody enjoyed the video, and I'm out.